All right, so this is my Dante build. I do not intend these to be how to build. If you find them interesting, that's cool. You know, go for it. But I'm not trying to tell you how to make stuff. All my builds have a tendency to have a theme around them, so they do tend to be confined to those concepts, and there's definitely things that could make them better. I'm just not too worried about that, and I don't really care about the meta in the first place. I do not do max level content because I am uninterested in that. As for Dante, I consider him a warlock, or at least that's my theme, because he seems very warlock to me. He's not really a wizard to me personally, but a lot of that's, you know, D&D, right? Wizards to me are arcane scientists. It's all about understanding the fundamental workings of how the arcane work. There's sort of a difference there. And the fact that he's got a living grimoire he summons out of nowhere and he's spouting light and dark verses, he's very warlock to me. Add into that mass overguard generation, I figured he would be a good candidate for keeping Kubros and Predasites alive. And a Predasite visually fits so well that I wanted to use one, and then also add into that the Mecha set, which I felt would fit really well with Dante, because he does a lot of status effects. Everything he does is just slash status everywhere, right? It's all overguard and slash status. So I was like, all right, is Warlock, we'll get a Predasite, and we'll get Mecha built in there. That's like the main three things we're going. And to that end, because of Mecha, it has a thing that your primary weapon, you can take a lot of the status effect from that, or your status chance, and add that to the Predasite, which led me to ultimately deciding on the Incarnate Torid as a stat stick. I am using this not as a weapon, but as a status for my Predasite. So this is Nurgle. He is the Predasite I made. He is a Mecha, and I got the name. Yeah, I didn't think of like, oh, Warhammer 40k, I'll call him Nurgle. I was searching up names for like demons or gods associated with disease, and like literally the second thing in a list just said Nurgle, spelled differently than the 40k version. And that was when I was like, oh, that's probably what it's based off of, right? I looked it up, and then it's a Mesopotamian god, oriented around all kinds of stuff. But one of those was, you know, diseases and stuff, which I'm positive that's where Warhammer 40k got the whole Nurgle thing from, or Warhammer in general. Anyway, I liked the name. I like that it sounds like the Nurgle from 40k. All right, so let's get into the build real quick here. I'm going to start with the Archon shards because I have a tendency to forget them. I have 3 ability shards in and 2 casting speed Tau Forged Piss shards. I have too many of these because I don't use yellow shards all that often. But his cast speed is so horrendously slow that I would wildly recommend this no matter how you build your Dante. Yeah, they are. Oof, oh boy. Anyway, and then the weapons here, which do not matter because we don't really use them. I have the Torid. As I said, I'm using this primarily for the status chance. And everything in here literally exists just to boost the status except for critical delay, which is giving a bit of crit chance, which due to a hunter's mod we're using, he's getting 30% of this as well. An example of what would be better here. The Paris Incarnate will have an 80% base status chance opposed to 60. The only real reason ultimately I'm using this over the Paris is I had this at the time and I didn't have the Paris. And B, even though I have a Paris Prime or Paris Incarnate Prime now, this is way funnier. The idea of using Torid as a stat stick just really makes me happy. And also it's good enough. He has like a 30% status chance as is right now. This Riven is not mine. This is Helio's. I don't know, this is like his 30th fucking Torid Riven he's found. And he was just like, here, it's got a bunch of status on it. Just hold on to it for a while. So it's currently in there. I would lose a little over 60% status chance. So I'd be just under 30% or just under 300% with this off. if I ever get my hands on a Torid Riven that I'm keeping, I am going to try to roll it for status and crit chance specifically for this build. Otherwise, like I said, status chance. I'm using this over Galvanized because more status chance, blah, 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 blah. Also, half of the reason we went with the Torid originally is a lot of weapons had kind of mediocre status chance here, but then their incarnate form would have a massive status chance. And I have no idea if the incarnate form, if you transform it, gets used, but with the way a lot of the game works, I don't think it does. I think it literally looks at the first instance, and that's all it's doing, and no matter what you do, it's not going to change that unless it directly changes this stat right here. So, yeah. Then we got a backup Grimoire.
Saddle up.
This is our backup Grimoire. I got it magnetic for no reason whatsoever. Secondary Frontier for no reason. We've got Universal Orb stuff, which, sure. I got this specifically in here in case I need to get energy back. And if I ever run out of energy, this thing can result in me getting energy back again to get my Noctua up and everything else going. Ideally, that doesn't happen. And in most situations, it doesn't. But you know how it is. Nothing's perfect. Whatever. I don't use this. That's it. It exists. It's there. You can do anything you want with it. It doesn't fucking matter. The Serrata, again, it exists to... It fits the visual style, and I figure if I'm gonna melee, I might as well throw a disc at people. And then here is the Noctua, the thing that actually matters. So I do have a overall build I think is better than this, but this is how I like having things set up right now. I've got Universal Health Orbs on Death because that's just useful to everybody. We have the energy regeneration from using the special attack. This is incredibly useful to periodically do to just make sure you always have a lot of energy. Alternate fire will build ability strength, and it's important to remember that Noctua, like every buff in this game, every single buff in this game, as far as I'm aware of, and every sustained ability snapshots your ability strength and stats in general when you use it. This is like a problem with Vex armor I mentioned is when you cast the ability, whatever your ability strength is at that time, that's what it's using. If you gain or lose ability strength after, it doesn't care, which means you have to... The nice thing about Noctua is you can turn it off and on again, right? So throwing this at a big group, getting 20 to 60% ability strength, turning it off and on to make use of that bonus is useful. I have, so then we've got crit chance because I'm using 120% attack speed arcane for secondary weapons on a crit. So this triggering majority of the time means that basically this triggers every time I shoot it. So first shot, big attack speed boost, thumbs up. Critical damage because we're doing crits often. We got multi-shot because this is very important for status and maintaining everything. And then the reason I have full heat here is because I'm using, well, two reasons. We're using Cascadia Flare. If you're doing the other thing I'm going to mention later, then I would probably use Elementalist here. But even without that, this being, basically I'm doing this because I want the burn, the heat effects to be the most often proc for Cascadia, and instead of using Elementalist, which makes the dots better, this is better direct impact. So you kill things, you know how it is, you kill things faster. Unless you're going to shoot it twice and then let it burn to death, this is better just because you're going to kill it faster with direct impacts. As far as Dante himself, we got Mecha, Umbral, Augur Secrets. I had this in here specifically, A, to get ability strength, and B, because it was letting me get overshield, because originally I was using, I was going to be using an arcane that gives you 300% crit chance when you have overshields, which made perfect sense for me on Dante because he's going to have overguard, meaning he can maintain overshields all the time, since everything's damaging the overguard and you got overguard regeneration. It worked out. And that is part of the, in my opinion, the better build than what I'm doing right now. We've arcane flow only because I don't have a better, I do have primed overflow, but as I mentioned in the last video, I'm not going to max this thing out until I get 2 more umbrals to give to Araxia and Chroma, at which point I'll be fine maxing this out, and then that'll go in here, and this maxed out is the same cost as this right now. So this is just sort of a stopgap. I'm using a base Archon Vitality because we're doing heat damage, so we get double procs each time, which is great. Mecha, this is absolutely pointless outside of boosting Mecha itself, which is worthwhile. Because every point in Mecha both increases how often the Predasite will mark a target and how big the radius is that it spreads everything. So you definitely, if you're doing full Mecha, you definitely want this. If you're doing Mecha, you definitely want this because it is a big difference. Literally, it's every 30 seconds versus every 15 seconds. It's absurd. You definitely want this, but the armor bonus is fucking pointless. So this is why this one's unupgraded. Blind Rage, Continuity, in a little switch up later on, the Archon version of this would be worthwhile. We got the Aura mod. For anyone who doesn't know how mechas work, this Aura mod is multiplicative. So anything that gets marked by the Predasite or the Kubro, you are going to do 2.5 times damage to that target. If everyone in the party has mechas and you're all near each other, that is 600% bonus or 7 times damage against that target, against any target who's marked. But then you got like 4 Predasites all or Kubros all marking 4 different targets. It's for this set can be very, very ridiculous. I just recently got preparation because one of the big issues with Dante is while he has an okay amount of energy at 270, I'm assuming it'll be 300 whenever we get Dante Prime in like 20 years or something. He only starts with 50 energy, which is way too small. If you didn't have Blind Rage in here, that would only be enough to cast light, only cast 2 of the lights or darks. Like that's it. And then you'd be out of energy and you literally could not finish it with the final verse. And right now, like this is way too much, right? Casting these 3 things in quick succession. So you start with Overguard. You basically, you need preparation. This is probably like the single best Exilus mod for Dante just because of the cost of things and how low his energy start is. I am using Arcane Trunculence, Truculent, whatever the hell the fuck you pronounce that, purely for thematic reasons. The Predasite does spread viral. This can spread viral way better. Everything in 30 meters when this is maxed out, getting 10 stacks because I generated 3,000 overguard. And keep in mind, that is 3,000 overguard over time. It doesn't have to be all at once, which is how I thought it originally worked, which means just regenerating overguard from the light verse combo here will cause this to kick out. So you'll like double tap this and then cast this and it'll kick one out. Sometimes casting just 2 of these will kick it out because you've already generated some since last time it triggered. If you're this is one of those things where in lower content, this doesn't happen often because you tend to be maxed out on your overguard and you're not losing enough to generate for another tick. But they're also so low, it doesn't matter. You're one-shotting everything anyways. And then in higher content like Archimedia's, you're losing overguard consistently enough that you are proccing this all the time. Like it is just pooping out viral 30 meters ever, or 25 meters for me everywhere all the time, which is fun. And again, it matches the whole Nurgle thing, which makes me happy. Like I said before, I'm using the 125% here. And then if we go over to Nurgle, my boy, got Mecha Shield Charge, useless. This, no reason to even have this maxed out. I think I have it maxed out because I'm also using the card on everything else, and I've got plenty of energy for everything here. I actually have these specifically because I also use him on Grendel at the moment, so I've linked stuff for that. Hunter's Command, so anytime you apply slash on a target, he will be directed. So if he marks a target and you shoot that target a few times and it doesn't die, he will then run at it as long as there was a slash proc applied, which is going to happen. Seismic Bond, the Noctua counts as a sustained, even though it doesn't drain everything. It is a sustained, or sorry, it is a channeled ability. Therefore, this is on 24/7, which means every single attack he does creates a shockwave, and that shockwave does 30% of his damage and gives you ability efficiency. Stacks up to 10 times. That's 30% efficiency. So if you notice you're at 30%, you can turn your thing off, turn it back on again. Like try to get ability strength up there. Try to get your once your efficiency is there, put them both on, and now it's cheaper to shoot this thing. It's cheaper to use everything. Yay. Vicious Bond. This thing causes him to strip enemies. Enemies recently damaged by ability to spread the effect to enemies in 9 meters. When you strip every time you attack something that you've recently hit, because Noctua counts as an ability, you are just AoE stripping armor off of everything all the time, including enemies that you cannot do status effects to, which is very useful. If there is an enemy that has a lot of armor, but you can't apply statuses to, which is like a few enemies here and there, or it's like a boss enemy that you can only get like 4 stacks of anything on, this can help strip its armor. Radius, fetch, because reasons. And then we have Duplex Bond, because you are just making a ton of copies of Nurgle. Like, it is just a sea of Nurgles running around attacking stuff. Granted, those copies only take into account the claw, not any of this. None of this stuff is being used on them, which Contagious Bond is amazing. I would say this is like better and worse than Mecha. This will spread stuff consistently more often, but to less things, and not as potent as Mecha. Because again, Mecha, you are increasing the damage you're doing to the target, and as such, the dots themselves, and then you're spreading them in a massive radius to the point where it will just delete stuff. But it's only one target, and you have to find that target. Half the time it's behind a wall somewhere, because they'll just target something that neither of you can see, and it makes no sense. Contagious Bond is definitely more reliable in that regard. But again, it's only half the whatever. You're not getting bonus damages. And it doesn't work well with Duplex Bond. And I really want a Duplex Bond. So Duplex Bond actually works well with Mecha, because if they kill the thing, it doesn't matter. It has status effects on it, and it's going to die, and those are going to get spread to everybody. Whereas with Contagion, only the main companion will spread stuff. Your Duplex won't, because again, they don't use anything from here. They are immune entities that are just using the claw, whatever. So anyway, Duplex works well with Mecha is what I'm getting at. Doesn't work well with Contagion. We have Parasitic Spores, because he's the Magi. This one is, he charges at an enemy, then AoEs everything at 15 meters. He's basically turns himself into a weird slow fireball. He hits targets, slows everything, opens them up to finishers. Infectious Bite does a bunch of finisher damage, and then if they don't die, applies viral. Those things will explode and apply viral to everything. Volatile Parasite, this one's just funny. Every 15 seconds, it just spits out a maggot, and that maggot will just cause mayhem. Like, it literally attaches to something, and everyone freaks out and starts shooting that person. It tries to shoot the maggot while that person is freaking out like they're on fire, but it's not. There's just a maggot currently trying to burrow inside them. It inevitably explodes, taking all the damage, doing AoE, spreading viral. Again, it's just funny, and it just fits the theme of my weird little Nurgle demon. The claws. We've got Maul, Bite, which seems kind of bog standard. Sepsis Claws, because again, Nurgle. Mecha Override. This is the thing right here. 60% of primers. This is why he's doing 300% status chance. The nice thing about the Meja is they actually have a base 20. So if I take Override Mecha over off, he's already at 86%, which is pretty solid. But yeah, see, stat sticks. If he hits anything, he's literally always applying 3 status effects, which is fantastic. We got Hunters for getting that extra crit over. Magnetic radiation because reasons, Bloodthirst in case he does lose a little bit of health. Part of me feels like I should probably use Protector Stance just because it keeps him next to me more often than not. I just haven't bothered switching it out. Might as well now, I guess. This one's kind of fun because he does stagger enemies. That doesn't matter too much. But he does run around way too much with this on, whereas this one, he'll keep closer, so he'll get the overguard more and all whatnot. Anyway, so that is the claw build. And that's basic Nurgle's setup. As far as what I would recommend if you're like, I like this build, but what's the thing you think is better? So Cascadia, all right. So I'm using Cascadia Flare now because it works well, and it inevitably will when I get the full thing build up to 480%. That's a lot of damage. But like I said before, there is the crit one, which provides, I guess technically there's a few things. So here's this one right here. I don't have it maxed out at all, but I was using this because a 100% crit chance was getting me to the roughly 50-ish%, and that was more than enough to reliably trigger my attack rate. But I did an Archimedia where one of the conditions I had to have on, basically it rolled a bunch of shit that I couldn't use, like a bunch of frames that I didn't, like I had, but I hadn't worked on. They're all level 0, and like I don't have the time to get them Archimedia ready. And then even if I did, there's a good chance that Archimedia would re-roll them because I was working on stuff. So it's one of those where I just took everything and I just took Dante as a fuck it, he works regardless of what I'm doing. But one of the things that it had on there was it takes 5 times as long for for shields to generate. And for whatever reason, I don't know if it was just like a bug or if this is just how that shit works and it doesn't state it. I could not gain overshields. It was physically impossible in all 3 missions for me to gain overshields from Augur. And I tested it out multiple times while I was in there. No enemies around. I have full overguard. I'm casting abilities one after another, and I would not go above my max shields, which basically invalidated this in its entirety. Now it wasn't that big of a deal. Once you get a crit in there, the cast chance, the attack speed was fine, and you'd keep resetting it anyways because you'd eventually get a crit before it faded out. But it wasn't great. But that is the only instance where I haven't been able to make use of this. But if you do have this and you use the same setup here, you would be at 1,000, or sorry, not 1,000, Christ, that'd be amazing. 176.1 crit chance, which means you'd be doing mostly oranges instead of mostly yellows, right? And then you'd be doing, so this right here would be doing 7.4 times damage on oranges, and then this 4.2 on the remainder, the other 24% for crit chances. So that right there would be a lot better, but then you lose all the damage, right? So at that point, the better option for arcane is arcane precision. It's so easy to maintain. All you need is a weak spot every 15-ish seconds, and you are gaining 300% damage. This is much like, the nice thing about this one is a single hit and everything else is gaining your 4 times damage, the 300%. You don't have to build it up like you do with Cascadia. And then if you add to that the crit chance, you can see where I'm going with this. That's just more damage than what I'm doing now. You'd be doing so many orange crits. So your crit multiplier would be higher on top of always easily getting this. In fact, my current setup, one of the issues I ran into was I was going through Steel Path and I had to get through Lephantis to get to the survival mode I was trying to, so I could level up stuff that I wanted to level up. Because that's the mode I usually use in non-Steel Path to level up certain things. And I was like, well, that's where I'm going to go again. So I went through Lephantis, and it turns out he is immune to status effects. All 3 of those dumbass heads are immune to status effects. meaning I could not build up. Cascadia Flare. Now, the nice thing about this setup, even though I don't have any bonus damage here, is this is a lot of damage. To give you, so like the Grimoire, for example, it does 100 base damage and 50 base AoE damage, but it's got massive fall off. So you're pretty much just getting 150 base damage to a single target. Noctua at base is doing 250, and then that is being increased by ability strength, which basically means ability strength is its own separate damage multiplier for Noctua, which is why it does so much freaking damage, which means you frankly don't really need percent damage, but percent damage dramatically boosts it. I was still doing good damage, it just wasn't great damage. And if I had this other thing swapped at the time, it would be a lot better. So that'll probably end up being a secondary setup I do, just when I know I'm going to have to fight a boss that is immune to status effects. But otherwise, I do love this setup, because this builds up real quick. It's nice. Oh, last thing. Totally forgot to mention this. The reason I am doing heat damage and Nurgle is doing toxin damage. Oh, actually, two things. Yeah. So, but the reason I'm doing that is because the Dark Verse combos / heat and toxin. So those are the 3 dot damages you would want to focus on when it comes to Dante, and you can't really combo heat and toxin normally. So I have toxin on Nurgle, right? Makes sense. And then I do heat on mine, because frankly, between heat and toxin, they're the way they do damage is very similar, but heat has the better potential because it doesn't. Every new heat stack resets the duration on the whole stack. So you end up just building this massive number on top of them having roughly the same base formula. So they both basically do half damage, and they gain the same benefits from it that they both, whatever. They're basically the same thing, but toxin fades off individually and heat doesn't. So that's ultimately why I went with heat in the book. But this is where we come to the second thing as another additional. If you want to try this, the other build pieces I mentioned would be better, but also Nurgle, as I said, was a Medjay. In my opinion, a potential better Predasite would be not Amunet, would be my Amunet here, who is a Pharaoh. Now, Pharaohs, the reason they're going to be better is, so first things first, they also spread viral. They shoot out a tentacle that clings to enemies, and it slows enemies that try to like get away. So it doesn't pull enemies into a cluster, but it does keep them from getting too far away from each other. So it creates like a little area where everything starts getting slowed for trying to move, and it applies viral all the time, repeatedly. So it builds up viral that way. But this is the main reason. Anabolic pollination. It releases a cloud of spores that persists for 10 seconds. So it leaves a trail behind it. It turns this thing on, and roughly like for 2 seconds, it's leaving this trail behind itself, or 1 second, or whatever. It doesn't matter. It's a trail of clouds. You stand in clouds, you get toxin buff. This toxin buff is added to all of your weapons, including Noctua, and it is not comboed no matter what you have on there. So if you have Noctua built for heat damage, and you get this buff, you are now doing / toxin and heat. Which brings me to why I was saying the Archon thing. You could then use Archon continuity here instead of prime continuity, and that would basically result in you also applying corrosive, which at the end of the day, I do think overall would be a better build than what I have now. But what I have now is already so destructive, I just don't care. And this fits with my theme better than what that would be. Sort of, not really. But it's, yeah. I like where I'm at. I like where he's at. I don't really want to try to change it up. So that's it. The rest of the video, for anybody who stuck around this long, is going to be a run through of Netracell solo with this setup right here. For anybody else who doesn't care about that, thanks for sticking around. I'm done talking.
Don't want to tell you your business, but it works for me.
Okay, what do we have here? Let's see. High currency. Okay. Network not responding. The fuck? Okay. Okay. Well, the internet seems Internet seems to be okay. Christ. That was weird. What the hell is that? Gaining... Oh, that's the sufficient overguard, yeah. So this is lightning. 2 energy per second. Enemies nearby me. Yeah, not gonna matter. Damage, who cares? Boost 2 health, wouldn't move you, who cares? As long as it's actually my overguard, not my health, that ain't gonna matter.
Use that terminal.
So here's one of the nice things about this. Like I said, you spawn so many extras. Oh, blech. I hate having this on. I had it on earlier to make it easier to do something. There we go.
Get control of a few terminals. That'll help you zero in on them.
What is this thing? Yeah. I am gonna just run to the thing. Oh, this guy. Sure. Ooh, energy. Downside of that when you're running through these things is you're just not going to get energy running through this unless you sit there and kill stuff to try to get it. That just makes everything take longer, so I'm not going to bother. But that is easily one of my favorite little weird shrine things. I forget what they're called. But they do remind me of Diablo shrines. Alright, to the Netracell.
This is it. Use the key glyph and get ready for whatever happens next. We ain't done! Local threats are triggering a security override. Clear out the uglies to pop the door.
Okay.
Albrecht's damn necromites are reinforcing the Netracell. Your hands are tied until you knock them out.
Wow, this is relatively far away. All right. Okay, so one of the other things was I also use Molt to like build up ability strength, or I was going to. I also use Kamisado. Kamisado could be good to build ability strength up to recast the book. But I just found that the birds, which build up the ability strength from it, are slow as hell. And at the end of the day, I just decided, you know, it's doing so much damage anyways, it doesn't really need the boost. And getting viral, you know, it's already a pretty big boost. I don't really need the 60% base.
Keep thinning them out.
Plus I can get, you know, a good chunk with that. Like right there, that was 40%. Let's recast it. I also do not have a specific... Oh, where'd it go? Yeah. I don't have a specific focus school that I'm using with anything on the build. Though anything that boosts your ability strength would be worthwhile. I think the biggest one for that one is the one that's already really good for void damage, abilities, whatever stuff, you know? So... that seems like a good option.
Something's going on with necromites.
Oh, necromites.
Take them out.
Now.
We ain't got all day.
Wait, how far is that? Oh, it's right here. Okay. It's funny how like the normal versions of those things have insane damage reduction and health. Like they're very hard to kill if you can, even if you can. And then these versions just instantly explode to anything. Okay, which also brings me to like, so the dark thing, right? I love this, like doing dark. But everything dies so quick to the book that unless it's like a really high-end, like steel path 500 plus Exilus unit, I usually don't have time to actually like double pop this and then blow something up with it because it's just, yeah. But, you know. Yeah, that's it.
Take whatever Albrecht was hiding and get back to the sanctum.
You know, another thing, just as an aside that may be worthwhile, instead of the ability strength, going for ability duration, and then using range instead of a duration mod, could be worth it, because his abilities already last a pretty good long time, and the energy generation I have is definitely more than enough to keep maintaining them all, you know, even with a lower duration. Oh, I did pick him up.
Not what I was hoping for.
But also,
But
the final verse is
that
30
could still
meters,
come
so
in handy.
it's also pretty damn long. Like it's funny because like this here, 20 meters. Those are both 20 meters, so not as far as that pink went. This, oh, I don't know the energy anymore. But then the final verse version is further than my current 25 meter pulse on the viral. So as far as that went, it went further than that. That's pretty damn far, as far as I'm concerned. Like if you know, then again, trying to get players there, oh man, they are a bunch of, it's like herding cats sometimes, trying to get people all their overguard. Not as big an issue on Dante, but when I'm playing Grendel and I want everyone to have nourish, I'm trying to nourish everybody and I just can't get everybody together. It's, oh man, it's ugh. Keep running away from getting nourished, man. Hey, pick it up. I should go turn those in.
Another job
So what do we
well
get?
executed.
Oh, good. A piss shard. Oh, add it to the pile. Son of a bitch.